Dean Martin wasn't just a smooth crooner or the charming face of the Rat Pack. He was one of the most beloved entertainers of the 20th century. With his velvet voice and effortless charisma, he captivated audiences on stage and screen. But away from the spotlight, Martin played a far bigger role, that of a father. Across 3 marriages, he raised 8 children, each growing up in the shadow of Hollywood fame. So, what became of them? Who stepped into the spotlight? Who chose a quieter life? And what tragedies marked the Martin family along the way? Craig Martin. Stephen. Craig Martin, born on June 29, 1942, was Dean Martin's first child and eldest son. From the very beginning, his life carried the weight of being the firstborn in a family that would become Hollywood royalty. When Craig was just a boy, his parents divorced. At the age of 7, custody was awarded to Dean, and Craig, along with his 3 sisters, was raised in Beverly Hills under the watchful care of Jean, Dean's second wife. For Craig, childhood meant growing up in a household where stardom was the air everyone breathed, yet he himself often stayed quietly in the background. Rather than chase the microphone or the stage, Craig gravitated toward the world behind the camera. In the late 1960s, he began working on The Dean Martin Show, first as a production coordinator and later as an associate producer. By the 1970s, his credits extended to variety shows like Sha Na Na. He had found his niche, part of the entertainment world, but not in its glare. Love, too, entered his life through Hollywood circles. Craig married Carol Costello, daughter of legendary comedian Lou Costello. Their union symbolized an old Hollywood bond, the son of Dean Martin and the daughter of Abbott and Costello, 2 of the biggest names of their generation. But tragedy struck in the cruelest way. In March 1987, Craig's younger brother, Dean Paul Martin, was killed in a plane crash at just 35 years old. Only 8 days later, Craig's wife, Carol, suddenly died of a stroke. To lose a brother and a wife within the span of a single week was a devastation few could endure. For Craig, it marked a turning point. Afterward, he withdrew from public life, choosing privacy over publicity. Now in his 80s, Craig Martin's story is not one of fame or fortune. In the Martin family saga, Craig stands as the steady eldest, carrying the name, cherishing family ties, and weathering tragedy with resilience. Claudia Martin. Claudia Martin, born on March 16, 1944, was Dean Martin's eldest daughter. From the start, she seemed destined to follow in her father's footsteps. At just 12 years old, she appeared alongside him in Hollywood or Bust, 1956, stepping onto the big screen while most girls her age were still in school plays. Through the 1960s, Claudia carved out a modest career in film and television. She took on roles in beach party movies like For Those Who Think Young and The Ghost in the Invisible Bikini, while TV audiences saw her in popular series such as The Donna Reed Show and My 3 Sons. With her easy charm and talent, she proved she had inherited more than a famous last name. Yet Hollywood was not always kind. Claudia's personal life was marked by twists and turns. She married several times, including to actor Gail Martin, with whom she had a daughter, Jessie. But stability proved elusive. By the 1970s, Claudia began stepping away from the bright lights, gradually distancing herself from the Hollywood machine that had defined her youth. Eventually, she found peace in Reno, Nevada, far from the red carpets and studio lots. There, with her final husband, Jim Roberts, she embraced a quieter life, even running a small printing business. For someone raised in the dazzling chaos of show business, Claudia seemed to have found comfort in ordinary rhythms. But tragedy struck too soon. In February 2001, Claudia lost her battle with breast cancer at just 56 years old. She was the first of Dean Martin's 8 children to pass away, a heartbreaking milestone for a family already touched by loss. Claudia's life reminds us that not every child of Hollywood royalty seeks lasting fame. She had her moment in the spotlight, but ultimately chose simplicity over stardom. Gail Martin. Barbara Gail Martin was born on April 11, 1945, the third of Dean Martin's children. And from childhood, her world was woven into the fabric of show business. Her circle of friends was unlike most kids. She counted Liza Minnelli as a childhood playmate, babysat a young Jamie Lee Curtis, and knew Frank Sinatra simply as Uncle Frank. For Gail, Hollywood glamour was less fantasy than daily life. Blessed with a warm voice and a natural stage presence, Gail followed her father onto the stage. In the 1960s, she performed as a singer, even opening for Dean during his legendary Las Vegas shows. She toured with her own nightclub act as well, earning praise for her charm and musicality. For a time, it seemed she might fully embrace a career in entertainment. But by her mid-20s, Gail chose a different path. In 1968, she married attorney Paul Polina, settling into family life and raising two daughters, Capucine, Cappy, and Liza. Her singing career faded into the background as motherhood became her focus. Though the marriage eventually ended, Gail later found happiness again, remarrying journalist and columnist Mike Downey in 1999. Unlike some of her siblings who remained in the spotlight, Gail largely stepped away. Today, she lives a peaceful life in Rancho Mirage, California, enjoying family and privacy. In 2009, she joined her brothers and sisters to accept Dean Martin's posthumous Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, a moment of pride and remembrance that brought the Martin children together to honor their legendary father. Now, in her late 70s, Gail Martin embodies a life of balance, touched by Hollywood but not consumed by it, proud of her heritage, yet content to live quietly. Deanna Martin. Deanna Martin was born on August 19, 1948, the youngest child from Dean Martin's first marriage to Betty McDonald. Of all the Martin children, she was perhaps the one who clung most closely to her father, sharing not only his charm but also his passion for entertaining. From an early age, Deanna was drawn to the stage. She studied tap, ballet, and piano, and as a teenager often appeared on The Dean Martin Show, delighting audiences with her warmth and easy rapport with her famous dad. Acting soon followed. She took roles in films like Young Billy Young, 1969, and Strangers at Sunrise, proving she had inherited her father's charisma. In 2004, she published her memoir, Memories Are Made of This, Dean Martin, through his daughter's eyes, which became a New York Times bestseller. The book offered an intimate, loving portrait of Dean, giving fans a glimpse of the father behind the legend. Through her writing, performances, and public appearances, Deanna positioned herself as both an entertainer in her own right and a guardian of her father's legacy. Her personal life, too, has been steady. Since 1990, she has been married to producer John Griffith, and the couple has built a strong partnership that has endured for more than 3 decades. Together, they've navigated the entertainment world while maintaining a sense of stability often rare in Hollywood families. Now in her 70s, Deanna Martin continues to perform around the world, her shows blending her own artistry with tributes to Dean. For fans, she is living proof that the Martin legacy endures, not only through old records and television reruns, but through a daughter who carries the torch with grace, talent, and love. Dean Paul Martin Jr. Dean Paul Martin Jr., born on November 17, 1951, was the bright star of the Martin family, the golden boy who seemed able to do everything. Handsome, athletic, and gifted, he carried both his father's charm and his own restless ambition. As a teenager, he captured hearts as part of the pop group Dino, Daisy, and Billy, alongside Desi Arnaz Jr. and Billy Hinsche. With hits like I'm a Fool and Not the Lovin' Kind, the trio became teen idols of the mid-1960s, and young Dean Paul, nicknamed Dino, stepped into the spotlight as a star in his own right. But music was only one of his talents. He excelled at tennis, even ranking among the pros, and later pursued acting. In 1979, his performance in the film Players earned him a Golden Globe nomination, showing he was more than just a celebrity son. He had genuine ability. Hollywood seemed ready to embrace him as the Martin heir to stardom. His personal life drew headlines, too. At only 19, he married actress Olivia Hussey, star of Romeo and Juliet. The marriage produced a son, Alexander, but ended in divorce. Later, in 1982, he wed Olympic figure skater Dorothy Hamill, a pairing that looked like a fairy tale, but also ended within 2 years. Then, in March 1987, tragedy struck. While on a routine training mission, Captain Dean Paul Martin's jet crashed in the San Bernardino Mountains during poor weather conditions. He was only 35 years old. The news devastated the Martin family. Dean Martin, already a legend, was crushed by the loss of his beloved son, and many close to him said he was never quite the same afterward. Dean Paul Martin Jr. had lived many lives in his short years: teen idol, actor, athlete, and pilot. He shone brightly, perhaps too briefly, leaving behind a legacy of talent, promise, and heartbreak. His death marked not only the loss of a son, but also the beginning of the decline of Dean Martin himself, whose laughter and music never fully recovered from saying goodbye to Dino. Richie Martin. Richie James Martin was born on September 20th, 1953, the sixth of Dean Martin's 8 children. From the start, music ran in his veins. Growing up surrounded by his father's Rat Pack friends and the glamour of Hollywood, Richie seemed destined to carve his own path in entertainment. In the 1970s, he teamed up with Carl Wilson of the Beach Boys, who later became his brother-in-law, to record Beached, an album that captured Richie's easy California style and love of melody. Though it didn't top charts, it marked him as a serious musician with his own voice. Over the years, he performed both solo and with friends, eventually joining forces with Desi Arnaz Jr. and Billy Heinze to create Richie, Desi and Billy, a tribute to the band once fronted by his late brother Dean Paul. It was part homage, part healing, a way of keeping family and music alive. Away from the stage, Richie built a quieter life as a father. He and his wife Annie raised 3 daughters, Pepper, Montana, and Rio. He adored them, often calling them his proudest achievement. Tragedy came in 2016, when Richie Martin died unexpectedly at his home in Utah at the age of 62. His passing stunned his siblings and fans alike. His sister Deanna remembered him as one of the sweetest souls, gentle, kind, and full of love. Richie Martin's story was not about chasing superstardom, but about music, memory, and family. He honored his father's legacy in his own way, through song, through writing, and through raising the next generation of Martins. In life and in loss, he reminded the world that even in Hollywood's brightest families, it is the quieter voices that often carry the deepest notes. Gina Martin. Gina Caroline Martin was born on December 20th, 1956, the youngest of Dean's children with his second wife, Jean. Compared to her more public siblings, Gina grew up quietly, rarely stepping into the spotlight. As a little girl, she occasionally appeared with her family, most memorably in a 1967 Christmas episode of The Dean Martin Show. But even then, her presence was brief, and she seemed content to remain out of the glare of cameras. Her life took a deeply personal, romantic turn in the late 1970s when she began dating Carl Wilson, co-founder and lead guitarist of the Beach Boys. Their relationship was a meeting of 2 musical dynasties, Dean Martin's daughter and a member of one of America's most beloved bands. After nearly a decade together, they married in 1987, a bright moment of joy for the Martin family after years of ups and downs. For 11 years, Gina and Carl built a life together, balancing the demands of fame with a desire for normalcy. Their marriage was marked by deep affection and shared love of music, though Gina herself never pursued a professional career. In 1998, tragedy struck when Carl died of cancer at just 51 years old. Widowed in her early 40s, Gina retreated even further from public life, choosing privacy over publicity. Today, Gina Martin remains the most private of Dean's children. Her story is one of love, loss, and resilience, a woman who carried the legacies of both Dean Martin and Carl Wilson, yet chose to live far from the spotlight. In her quiet presence at family gatherings and memorials, she represents the side of the Martin family that valued privacy above performance. Sasha Martin. Sasha Martin entered Dean's life in the early 1970s when he married his third wife, Catherine Hahn. Though not his biological daughter, Dean welcomed Sasha with open arms, raising her as his own. Within the large Martin clan, Sasha was never treated as adopted. She was simply one of the siblings, sharing in the family's laughter, traditions, and heartbreaks. Unlike many of her brothers and sisters, Sasha had only brief brushes with the entertainment world. In the late 1990s, she stepped in front of the camera, landing a role on the long-running soap opera Guiding Light, where she played Marina Cooper between 1997 and 1999. She also appeared in the Howard Stern comedy Private Parts, 1997, a small role that marked her short-lived foray into Hollywood. But acting was never a lifelong pursuit. After those few projects, Sasha chose to retreat from the spotlight. She built a private life away from fame, avoiding the publicity that had defined so much of her father's career. In the words of her brother Richie, through 3 marriages and 8 kids, we were always one family. Sasha's story reflects that sentiment. She was fully a Martin, no matter the circumstances of her birth. Today, Sasha Martin remains one of the quietest members of the family, her life largely out of public view. She represents the quieter side of the clan, the ones who valued family ties above fame and who chose a life of privacy after growing up in the orbit of a legend. 8 children. 8 very different journeys. Some stepped into the spotlight and carried the Martin name onto the stage. Some chose quiet, private lives. And some were taken far too soon by tragedy. Dean Martin will always be remembered as a legend of music and film. But perhaps his greatest legacy lives on in his children, each of them writing their own chapter in the family story, in ways both joyful and heartbreaking. If you found this story meaningful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, so together we can keep these memories alive.